Canada is breaking from Washington. Swedish fighter jets and Chinese electric cars are reshaping our economy and sovereignty.
This twin shock to U.S. defense and auto dominance signals a new era. Canadian independence through global partnerships.
Two announcements dropped within hours of each other, and Washington didn't see either one coming. Canada isn't asking permission anymore. We're moving. Swedish fighter jets could be manufactured on Canadian soil within 3 years, creating 10,000 jobs that Trump thought belonged to American factories. And at the exact same moment, China just put Canada back on its approved travel list and is signaling something even bigger. Chinese electric vehicles might finally break into our market, ending decades of American auto dominance. If you thought Canada was still playing defense, you haven't been paying attention. This is offense. This is sovereignty, and Trump is watching his entire strategy collapse in real time. Let me walk you through what's actually happening here, because these aren't isolated events. They're connected, they're strategic, and they're proof that Mark Carney's approach is working exactly as designed. First, the Saab Gripen story. For those who don't follow defense procurement, this is massive. Saab, the Swedish aerospace giant, just confirmed they're proposing a full manufacturing partnership with Canada. Not a sale, not a lease, a partnership. They want to build a facility here, produce Gripen fighter jets on Canadian soil, and create up to 10,000 high-skilled jobs in our aerospace sector. The first Canadian-made Gripen could roll off the line within 3 to 5 years. Now, why does this matter? Because for decades, whenever Canada needed military aircraft, the answer was always the same. Buy American. Specifically, buy F-35s. Keep the Pentagon happy. Keep Lockheed Martin profitable. Keep Canada dependent on Washington for our defense capabilities. That was the deal. That was the arrangement. And every Canadian government, liberal or conservative, followed that script without question. But Carney isn't following that script anymore. Choosing Saab over F-35s sends a crystal clear message to Washington. Canadian defense policy is no longer American defense policy. We're not asking permission. We're not waiting for approval. We're making decisions based on Canadian industrial interests, Canadian job creation, and Canadian sovereignty. And if that means partnering with Sweden instead of the United States, so be it. Think about what Trump loses here. He doesn't just lose a multi-billion-dollar fighter jet contract. He loses the assumption that Canada will always choose American hardware over European alternatives. He loses the leverage that comes from Canada depending on U.S. defense manufacturers. He loses the narrative that Canada needs America more than America needs Canada. And here's the brilliant part. Saab isn't just offering jets. They're offering technology transfer. They're offering manufacturing jobs. They're offering research and development positions. They're offering Canada the ability to produce our own advanced military aircraft instead of importing them from someone else's assembly line. That's not dependence. That's capability. That's what sovereign nations do. Carney understood something fundamental that previous administrations missed. If you want real independence, you can't just buy different products from different countries. You have to build things yourself. You have to own the technology. You have to create the jobs. That's what the Saab partnership gives us. Jobs, technology, capability, real independence, built on Canadian soil. If you're watching these developments and recognizing them for what they are, strategic sovereignty actually happening, you understand what this channel is about. Independence isn't something you declare, it's something you build. Now watch what happened at the same time Saab made their announcement, because timing matters here. China just made a move that could completely reshape our automotive sector. China officially reinstated Canada on its approved list of countries for group travel. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a tourism story. More Chinese visitors coming to Canada, boosting our hospitality sector, increasing revenue for hotels and restaurants. And yes, that's part of it. But the real story is what comes next. Beijing is now hinting that it may remove the punitive tariffs it placed on Canadian canola years ago during the Ming-Wanzhou crisis. Those tariffs have cost Canadian farmers hundreds of millions of dollars. They've been one of the most painful consequences of the diplomatic freeze between Ottawa and Beijing. And now, after Mark Carney's 40-minute meeting with President Xi Jinping at the APEC summit and the first major dialogue in nearly 8 years, those tariffs might finally disappear. But here's the catch, and this is where things get explosive. China doesn't lift tariffs for free. They expect reciprocity, and the reciprocity they're looking for isn't just symbolic, it's automotive. Specifically, they want Canadian markets open to Chinese electric vehicles. Right now, Canada has a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs. That tariff exists because American automakers lobbied hard for it. They knew that if Chinese EVs entered the Canadian market at their actual price points, which are dramatically lower than American models, it would obliterate their competitive advantage overnight. Chinese EV technology is advanced. Their production costs are low. Their vehicles are reliable. And Canadians who are paying premium prices for American and European electric vehicles right now would absolutely consider cheaper alternatives. So Washington convinced Ottawa to block them. The tariff stays high. Ford, GM, and Tesla stay protected. Canada stays dependent on American manufacturers. The entire arrangement stays intact, except Carney is signaling that arrangement might be ending. Watch what happens if China lifts those canola tariffs, and Canada responds by dropping barriers on Chinese EVs. The automotive market here transforms completely. Canadians get access to electric vehicles priced at half what American models cost. American automakers lose the guaranteed market they've counted on for decades. Competition actually enters the equation suddenly. Competition actually exists. And Trump? He loses another pillar of economic leverage. Think about the broader pattern here. Carney isn't just making deals. He's systematically dismantling every mechanism that gave Washington control over Canadian policy. Defense? We're partnering with Sweden, agriculture. We're reopening trade with China, automotive. We're considering Chinese EVs, energy. We're pivoting to renewables and reducing reliance on American supply chains. Every single move removes a piece of leverage that Trump thought he had permanently. Mainstream coverage won't frame it this way. They're still analyzing Trump's intentions while missing what Canada is actually doing. The story shifted. It's not about what Washington wants. It's about what Ottawa's building. Look, getting closer to China raises questions. Beijing's not a democracy. Their human rights record creates real problems. Taiwan, the South China Sea, those tensions with our allies aren't going away. But watch what Carney's actually doing. He's not choosing China over America. He's choosing Canada over both of them. He's diversifying our economic relationships so that no single country, whether it's the United States or China or anyone else, can hold us hostage. That's not naivety. That's strategy. Canada spent decades putting all our economic eggs in the American basket. We assumed the relationship was stable. We assumed Washington would always act in good faith. We assumed geographic proximity meant permanent partnership. And then Trump showed up, slapped tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, called us a national security threat, and tried to bully us into submission during NAFTA renegotiations. That was the wake-up call. That was the moment Canada realized we needed options. And Carney is delivering those options, not by burning bridges with Washington, but by building new bridges everywhere else. Sweden for defense, China for agriculture and automotive, Europe for trade and climate policy, Japan and South Korea for technology partnerships, ASEAN countries for resource diversification. This is what modern sovereignty looks like. Not isolation, not dependence, but strategic autonomy backed by multiple partnerships across multiple continents. Here's what really terrifies Trump about all of this. It's not just that Canada is making deals with other countries. It's that those deals are working. The economy's growing. Jobs are being created. Industries are expanding. Diplomatic relationships are strengthening. And Canada's global reputation is rising precisely because we're no longer seen as America's automatic ally on every issue. We're being taken seriously as an independent actor. And that's something Canada hasn't experienced in decades. The Saab partnership proves Canada can build advanced technology domestically. The China reset proves Canada can negotiate with Beijing without Washington's permission. The potential entry of Chinese EVs proves Canadian consumers might finally get relief from inflated prices that benefited American corporations more than Canadian families. Every piece of this puzzle fits together. And Trump, who built his entire approach on the assumption that Canada had nowhere else to go, is realizing he was catastrophically wrong. So what happens next? Well, if the Saab deal goes through, expect massive pushback from Washington. American defense contractors will lobby hard against it. Pentagon officials will warn about interoperability concerns. Trump himself might threaten retaliation, but Carney has already shown he doesn't fold under pressure. If the deal makes sense for Canada, it moves forward. On the China front, watch for Beijing to formalize the Canola tariff removal in the coming weeks. If that happens, negotiations around Chinese EVs will accelerate quickly. And after those tariffs drop, you'll see Chinese automakers preparing to enter the Canadian market within 6 months. That's how fast this could move. And here's the beautiful irony in all of this. Trump spent years trying to isolate China economically. He launched trade wars. He imposed tariffs. He pressured allies to block Huawei and other Chinese companies. His entire strategy was based on creating a unified Western front against Beijing. But by bullying Canada, by treating us as a subordinate rather than a partner, by assuming we had no choice but to comply, Trump pushed us directly into the arms of the very country he was trying to isolate. China didn't win Canada over with charm or intimidation. Trump handed us to them by making the alternative unbearable. Trump doesn't understand this yet. Power changed. You can't threaten middle powers into compliance anymore when they have alternatives lined up. Canada, Australia, South Korea, they all watched the same playbook fail. And they all drew the same conclusion. Global supply chains are diversified. Technology has reduced geographic barriers. Digital commerce has created new markets. And countries like Canada, Australia, and South Korea have learned that strategic autonomy is not only possible, it's profitable. Carney understands this perfectly. He's not anti-American. He's pro-Canadian. And if being pro-Canadian means partnering with Sweden on defense and China on trade, then that's exactly what he'll do. The old rules said Canada follows America's lead. The new rules say Canada makes its own decisions. And tonight, with Swedish jets and Chinese EVs both moving closer to reality, those new rules just became undeniable. Trump wanted control. He got independence instead. He wanted compliance. He got sovereignty instead. He wanted Canada in a corner. He got Canada on the world stage instead. This isn't just policy. This is transformation. And it's happening right now, whether Washington likes it or not. This is exactly why Canada Next exists. Because these stories matter. Because Canadian sovereignty isn't abstract theory, it's concrete strategy unfolding in real time. If this analysis connects with how you see Canada's future, you're in the right place. The conversations happening here don't follow the old playbook, and neither does the audience. Drop a comment with your take on whether Chinese EVs actually make it to Canadian roads, because the community watching this channel right now is where these discussions happen first. The era of Canadian dependence is ending. The era of Canadian autonomy is here, and Canada Next is documenting every move.